Hi, I'm Heather, a certified personal trainer, yoga instructor, and have my BSN in exercise science and behavioral coaching from Arizona State University. I currently live in Oregon with my 3 kids, who I will reference often.
And I'm Britt, a former Division I collegiate athlete turned recreational triathlete and fitness instructor. I have a degree in exercise biology from UC Davis, and I currently live in Belgium with my husband and 4 kids.
Together, we're best friends wanting to bring the world of health and fitness back to a more grounded and balanced place that's accessible to everyone.
Each episode, we're going to talk about ways to live out a well-rounded and healthy life that makes sense in today's modern, busy world. We'll cover topics related to exercise, nutrition, mindset, mental health, competition, and so much more.
So sit back, sign up, and let's get ready to
Race to wellness.
Oh, I hear you. I put on normal pants today with a belt
Hello.
that going back to normal. Yeah.
I'm in stretchy
I'm
pants.
still like, are you? Nice. I've only worn stretchy pants for like months. And so like normal structured pants, I'm like, good, structured my clothes.
Amazing.
Yeah. Well, and I had like one pair of jeans left. And like then I tore them out like at month like 8, like they tore out in the crotch. And I was like, it's fine. I can keep wearing those. And then I put them on. I was like, absolutely not. So
This is fresh.
but I'm like, but I don't want to go buy new jeans until I'm back down to like my normal size. I'm like, then I'll
Yeah.
feel
We
good about
learned
buying
that
jeans again.
the Levi's store here, it has a tailor at it. And so
Are you serious?
yeah, so my husband went to the Levi's store to go buy new jeans, and he saw up at the counter like that they do repairs, and he was like, I have a pair of Levi's that I have gotten rid of the crotch of because I ride my bike and I'm just normal human being. And they were like, yeah, bring them in, we'll just put new fabric and reinforce it. He was like, what?
What? Is it like cost effective?
Yeah, it was, I think he brought in 3 pairs of jeans and it was like $30 to reinforce them all.
That's cheap. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm. So they put new fabric in because they obviously have the holes and things in them, and then they put extra fabric in to reinforce it because he rides his bike and it's going to rub on the seat the whole time.
Yeah. Dude, that's the worst. I'm like, mine is just thick thighs. Like, thick thighs save lives, but goddamn, my pants are torn out.
Yeah. Oh, man. Yeah, the last time I had to go buy jeans was literally because I was like, these ones I'm wearing right now are about to go, and I know it's going to happen when I'm in public, so...
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes. Luckily, it's like fashionable now. I remember like when it would happen when I was a teenager, and it was not fashionable to have torn out jeans like that. And so, yeah, I'm like, it's all embarrassing. I'm like, now I don't give a shit. Plus, I'm so fond of my legs, like the shape of my legs, that like if I have torn out anything or short shorts that are like up my ass, I'm like, I am a goddamn pleasure to look at. My legs are nice.
This is a snack right now. No.
Right, exactly. I'm like, I probably shouldn't be that confident, but I am. I love my legs. I work hard. I can squat a lot.
Oh, man.
Good. I remember the first time that I felt like that because, like, when I was, like, going through my pregnancies, the early ones, like, I had this whole, like, mental break of, like, I don't recognize my body, like, all that kind of stuff, and, like, just felt like shit and couldn't look in the mirror. And then, like, starting to work out regularly and consistently. I remember I was on a massage table.
Yeah.
And I remember like up to that point, if I had gone to get a massage, like I was really like hiding my body and that kind of stuff. And I was like, the whole blanket at that point, I was like, the whole blanket could fall off and I wouldn't care. I'm like, because I look good. Like,
love it.
I'm ready to be back to that body shape again where I'm like just walking around like, yeah.
I am confident again. This is awesome.
Yeah.
Love it. Anyway,
all right.
I've got my night owl hat on.
Yeah.
In honor of today's podcast, talking about sleep.
Talking about sleep. I slept so good last night. We've talked about before that like my bed tracks my sleep. And like usually I'm in the 70s as far as like out of 100, it gives you like a score.
Mm-hmm.
And usually I'm like 76 and it tells me. And last night it was 94. And I was like, I felt that. Like
I don't think I've ever
like,
had a 90s.
yeah, it felt good. I literally like closed my eyes and then I opened them and was like, I have to pee. And I like got out of bed and went to the bathroom and I was like, I don't really feel like going back to bed. I'm like, what time is it? Like usually I check my phone because I'm like, if it's within about an hour of when I'm supposed to wake up and I'm already awake, I don't go back to bed. And so I checked and it was like 20 minutes. I was like, yes. I'm like, nice. I'll get up right now.
Oh, yeah. No, I am not anywhere near 90. Whatever my algorithm is for mine. We've got
74.
74.
All right. Nice.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense why right now. My sleep is not in a great place right now. Not going to bed on time.
Yeah, I was gonna say, did you go to bed at 4 again?
No. So for those listening, I am a night owl. I tend to stay up really late, and sometimes, well, my husband, he works on a rotating shift schedule, and so the previous week he had been working an overnight shift all week, and I had gotten into the habit of kind of staying up a little bit too late while he was at work, and so now I'm stuck in the staying up too late area.
I climbed in bed at 9 and then I read for about 15 minutes and then I zonked out. It's like, yeah. But actually, I was thinking about it back to our New Year's resolution one. Like one of the things that I want to do is read every day, not just on the internet, but like actual textile books. Yeah. And so it's actually like right before bed, I usually have just a tiny bit of energy left right before I lay down. And so rather than looking at my phone, I've switched it to reading. And it seems to be working really nicely. Even if I'm reading 1 page or 20 pages, it doesn't really matter as long as I'm reading something.
Yeah. And I mean, that's probably a lot better for your brain waves anyways, because you don't have that blue light glare coming back at you. Even if you have the filter on your phone that turns it off, like night view or whatever it's called, like you still have a screen actively like glaring in your face.
Yeah, definitely. Well, and like my thing that I like to do is I like to watch TikTok videos right before I go to bed. But there's like, because they're so short and you're like scrolling, it really keeps my brain really active.
Yeah.
Rather than helping me shut down in any way. Yeah. So just being able to like plug my phone in, do my nighttime routine, and then just get in bed and read is nice.
Yeah, that is nice.
Yeah.
So we were talking yesterday during one of our planning meetings about how there are kind of 2 types of people, the ones who need to make that to-do list right before bed and the ones that don't. And so I think that since I need to make the to-do list at night, I'm going to start doing that more often, because I noticed last night, especially, I couldn't stop my brain because it kept saying, don't forget to do this tomorrow. You have to do this. You need to go to the grocery store and buy this thing because you just ran out. So
yeah.
I'm going to start making a better to-do list.
Good. That's awesome. That'll definitely, I feel like that'll help you like settle down right before bed too. Especially if you like create a routine around it and then your brain kind of gets used to that, like, okay, it's shutting down. One of the things that I do for my kids around like helping them go to sleep is like the hour leading up to bed, I start turning off lights throughout the house, like as a subtle hint to them that, and then as it's getting darker, and then there's usually like one left on in the living room as they're watching TV. Yeah, exactly.
As it gets darker.
Like following those circadian rhythms. I think that we like, as humans, kind of turn on all the lights in the house and then don't think about it. And I'm like, but it really like helps them.
Yeah, definitely does.
So sleep.
Yeah. I feel like it's not. I feel like it's not as well talked about, and given as much it's not given as much credit to how big this is to our health, our fitness, our mental health. Like everything is connected to sleep.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know about you, but like when I'm not sleeping, everything else around my wellness like kind of goes out the window. Like it's the number one. I know that there's like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and the bottom one on that pyramid talks about physical needs. And so a lot of times people think of that as like food and water, shelter, like general care. but they don't think about sleep as being a factor in that. And like literally nothing else in that pyramid, for those of you listening that don't know Maslow. So there's like physical needs, and then there's like safety and security, and up the pyramid until you get to transcendence. And like the idea in our life is that we should be able to transcend, to have broader thoughts about the universe and our purpose here and that kind of stuff. But if anything lower on the pyramid is not taken care of, then you can't move into those other areas. And so sleep and that physical need is massively important.
Yeah, definitely. And we've got like 4 kind of big reasons as to why that we're going to talk about here. And it makes total sense as to why it's so important for everything else in that pyramid.
Yeah.
So why don't we just kind of jump right into just why our body needs sleep to begin with?
I love it. You want to take it off?
Yeah. So these are in no particular order necessarily. But the first one is just kind of cellular restoration. So essentially, we're going to think of this as our body is going to go in and kind of do the maintenance, do the work to repair itself, to set itself up for the next day, to make sure that we are just kind of ready to go. So big things that happen during this time, we've got muscle repair. If you've been working out, your body's going to start repairing those muscles that you worked really hard in that workout overnight while you sleep. Protein synthesis, so both for helping with that muscle repair, but also with so much of the rest of your body. Like we think of protein a lot of being connected to your muscles and getting those big gains, but you can have proteins that just help with your hormones, or proteins that are there to help deliver messages around your body and signals. Like they're not just related to lifting weights. We've got tissue growth. So obviously our body is made up of different types of tissues. So maybe it's the tissue in your stomach lining or your bones or whatever it is. A lot of this tissue growth is going to help happen while we're resting overnight sleeping. And we've got hormone releases. So we have a lot of different hormones in our body. If you are not aware of it, you have far too many hormones that do a lot of different processes. And a lot of it is connected to when we go to bed, they're going to adjust levels. They're going to make more of them. They're going to check to see what other functions are going on in the body, things like that. So all of these processes and more are just so connected to living a really healthy life.
Yeah, I love that. The next big thing is focused around brain function. So this is something that I'm super passionate about because I like to focus not just on the physical health, but also on mental and emotional health as well. And so sleep, as it affects our brain function. So throughout the day, our brain functions like a closed circuit. So there's all your hormones, your blood, all those things are contained within your brain. And it's a closed circuit from the rest of your body. You do have influxes of some blood flow, that kind of stuff, if you stand quickly, that sort of thing. But overall, it's kind of a closed system. So what happens throughout the day is that your brain uses up what is provided to it. And it creates toxins. It creates the same way that our normal body, when we eat, we process the food and then it comes out as waste. So our brain creates that waste within our brain, within our mind, but it doesn't release it throughout the day. So when we go to sleep at night, then there's like a cleaning system that comes in and it releases all those toxins from our body, which then flush out through our normal system. When we're not sleeping enough, that cleaning system doesn't have time to come in and clear out all those toxins. And so then those toxins end up staying in our mind, staying in our brain. And then throughout the next day, it impacts like cognitive function. You feel really sluggish. You might feel tired. You might feel like you're not making the same connections that you normally do because those toxins are in there. Mental health wise, like it impacts your ability to, like, for impulse control. It really affects your frontal lobe. It means that as far as like eating decisions and just regular decision making, it's really difficult. And then as well as it impacts your memory function. And so being able to transition short-term memories to long-term becomes something that's really difficult. And so especially if you're a student or somebody who's doing a lot of studying, that's really challenging. If you're trying to study for something and you're not sleeping enough, then you're not going to be able to transition those short-term memories into long-term. Really challenging.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I know that there's a lot of people, especially students, that like there's students talk about like staying up really late. They're studying for an exam. They're really trying to cram for it, that kind of stuff. And really, it would be better if you just did your normal studying and then go to bed, get a full night's rest, and get up in the morning. That process, that cleaning out process, as well as the memory transition is huge. It's huge for learning.
Yeah. I always think of, there was a episode of Mythbusters way long ago, and they were doing the myth that driving while sleep deprived is worse than drunk driving. And I don't remember the final conclusion of, is it worse than drunk driving? Both of them are obviously bad. But they were able to show that driving while sleep deprived is not that great, because you're, like you were saying, your cognitive functions are slowed, your reflexes, they are severely impacted. Like, you're going to be a lot slower at moving your foot from the gas to the brake pedal if something jumps out in front of you.
Yeah, definitely. The other one for me with driving is like blood sugar. If my blood sugar is low, I'm shit at driving. Like, I start like, I don't stay in the lanes as easily. Like, when I'm transitioning to another lane, I'm maybe not checking as clearly or seeing things as clearly. It really impacts all of that. Yeah. And especially being tired.
All right. Speaking of blood sugar, we're going to move into energy conservation. So while we are sleeping, our need for energy and our need for those calories goes way down. So it's called your resting metabolic rate, or your RMR. It is essentially what you need to just survive while sleeping. It's the amount of energy you need to just kind of lay there, let your body do what it needs to do. That's obviously much lower because we're not walking around, we're not having conversations, we're not having deep thoughts and critical thinking and all of that. Also, while we're sleeping, though, to help with our energy conservation later, goes back to our hormones. Our hormones for eating get adjusted, essentially. So while we're sleeping, we've got two hormones that kind of get a little bit of a tweak, and then throughout the day, your body's still going to make more and like release more, but a lot of the process gets done while you're sleeping. But this really shows itself when we are sleep deprived. So we have two basic hormones. One is called ghrelin and the other is called leptin. These hormones essentially help us with figuring out if we're hungry and when to stop. So ghrelin tells you that you are hungry, and leptin tells you that you are full, you can stop. So while we are sleep deprived, that ghrelin hormone goes up, which makes you think that you are hungry, need to get food, and you're going to go try to consume more calories. For short, acute sleep deprivation, so like one night, your leptin doesn't necessarily move that much, but if you turn this into a pattern, that leptin hormone level is going to adjust itself, and it's going to start suppress in your body. And so while your ghrelin is up saying you're hungry, your leptin level's not going to tell you to stop eating, which can have a lot of impacts on your weight gain or your weight management. If you're someone that struggles with any sort of like eating, this could be one of the issues because you can't tell yourself to stop. Your body's full now.
Interesting. Yeah. I don't think I've ever made that connection before. Like, I knew about ghrelin and leptin. I've heard it a bajillion times in my degree, but I don't think that I ever actually like thought through the process of how sleep impacts that in such a major way.
When I think back to when I was younger, and it doesn't matter as much what I eat because my metabolism is working so hard anyways because I'm growing. Like, I could definitely see that when I was tired and sleep deprived, I would just go and get a bag of chips or like something rich in just empty calories because I want to eat.
Mm-hmm.
And now when I think about it, I'm just like, how was I able to survive doing this? And obviously it's because your metabolism rate is so much higher when you're younger. But
Yeah, for sure.
yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. Cool. The last thing, well, sleep impacts way more, I'm sure, but the last thing we're going to talk about is immunity and the immune response. I'm not actually super clear on this one because I feel like our immune response is so broad. So do you want to talk about this one?
Yeah. So for our immunity, obviously there's a lot that goes into play as well. Do you have underlying conditions? Are you on any sort of medications or anything that's messing with your body already? But let's just put ourselves into a vacuum and say that everything is fine. And the only thing that we're going to change up is kind of our sleep for this.
Is it?
So lack of sleep can actually suppress our immune response and make us even more susceptible to illness. So if we think about it, if we're not sleeping very well, it's essentially going to make it slower for your body to recognize those dangers and recognize those viruses, those bacteria, those things coming in and having them make an effect of trying to combat them. So nice little anecdote is if you've ever noticed when you're really busy in your life and you're not sleeping that much maybe, and you get to the point where you're kind of feeling run down and just exhausted, and then you wake up the next morning with a cold, that is exactly what that immune response is showing you. It's that your body let its guard down while you were sleep deprived, and now that illness has started to take over and run its course.
Got it.
Going back to the first topic we talked about of what our cellular response is, our body makes those proteins while we're sleeping. So here's another example of some proteins our body uses to fight infection. So antibodies, anti-inflammatory, they're getting made while we're sleeping to help us fight off those infections that may be coming, any sort of inflammation that's coming in as well. And it's a great example of why when you're sick and you go to the doctor, a lot of your doctors will tell you, like maybe you need medication or whatever, but they'll also tell you the best thing you can do is rest. Drink lots of fluids and rest because your body is going to need that extra rest to do what it needs to do.
Got it.
Real simple breakdown, but essentially sleep and don't get sick.
Yeah. Cool. So going back to what we originally were talking about you being a night owl, and I don't think I said it, but I'm an early morning person. Like 4 a.m. to 5 a.m. is my really, really happy place. Probably from all my years at Starbucks, but I love it there. But is there a best time to sleep? What are your thoughts on that?
We're kind of programmed as humans to think when it gets dark out, that's when you go to sleep and you wake up when the sun comes out. It's our natural like circadian rhythm with nature and everything. Like it makes total sense as well with like the sun giving you vitamin D and all of these things that you get from natural light and being up and awake and all of this. And then as us as humans, as it gets dark, we tend to start to collect in, become a little bit slower, settle in, go to sleep.
Yeah.
But does that mean that that's the only time?
No. I was going to say, I definitely noticed that like during the winter months, like when it's the nights are longer. Yeah, exactly. It's so funny because it's like just barely daylight where I am. I'm like, and then it's dark where you are.
So for those that don't know or might have missed it, I am currently in Belgium where it is almost 6 p.m. right now. And Heather is on the West Coast.
I'm in Oregon.
United States.
Yeah, where it's 9 a.m. right now. Yeah. But I definitely noticed during the winter months where the night is longer, I do less during the day. I'm definitely much more dormant and like not just cozy in my house kind of thing because of the weather outside, but also like I sleep a lot more. Like I've noticed that partially because I was pregnant, so I was sleeping 10-ish hours a night just to try and get quality sleep. But just in general, like sleeping between 9, 10, 11 hours at night is not unheard of for me. Whereas during the summer months, I can go on 6 hours of sleep and be like blasted and ready for the day.
Yeah. Essentially, as like older adults, if you look at like the charts that are out there for research, like the older you get, kind of the less sleep you tend to need. But for people over the age of 18, it's generally been thought that you need like 7 to 9 hours of sleep. Obviously, maybe if you're pregnant, you need more, or if you are, again, fighting off any sort of immune response or something, you might need more. But 7 to 9 seems to be like the sweet spot there, which is why we always hear 8 hours of sleep. That's what you need.
Yeah, for sure. What about sleeping, the consistency of sleeping? So I notice sometimes I'll fall asleep for a couple hours and then I'll wake up in the middle of the night and like go about and do something. This is actually one of the reasons. So there's a specific gym that I go to, and the reason that I picked that one, aside from it being really cheap, is that it's open overnight. And so I'll wake up sometimes at like 1 a.m, go get a workout in, and then come home and go back to sleep and get really good quality sleep. So what are kind of your thoughts on sleeping consistently throughout the night? Should it all be in one go, or are naps okay? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of research on things like this, and you can go on PubMed, which is a website essentially that gathers scientific papers together, for those that don't know. So you can go on there and look it up. There's research and studies on both sides of this. Essentially sleeping in multiple different like sessions versus long term, I don't really see much of a difference in doing it as long as you are getting quality sleep during it. Like if you are able to like fall into that deep sleep, that REM sleep, whoa, I am not someone who can do that in a short term.
Yeah. I know that I have like, there's anecdotal evidence too. Like people say like, oh, I have to have a nap in the afternoon, something like that. Or people talk about like, oh, I need like 15 to 20 minutes of a nap, or I would have to sleep for an hour or two in order to get that kind of sleep. And I know that like for myself, if I am going to take a nap, which I don't always do, it's usually like 15 to 17 minutes, anything more than that. And then I wake up and I'm like a slug. Like I'm so slow moving. I can't function. It almost feels like I got into that deep space, but not long enough for it to be really helpful. But then the shorter phase is just enough to get like just a surface sleep, I guess. I'm like, I don't know how to.
Yeah. That's been seen a lot with different cultural practices. So like in Spain, there is that like culture of you have a siesta in the middle of the day and things just shut down around like 2 or 3. There are different reasons for this, obviously, but like we think of that as you go take a nap for an hour in the middle of the day. And like people tend to have that dip in energy level for whatever the reason is in the middle of the day and just need a nap. Sometimes it's because we ate too much and we need to sleep it off, or
yeah, that PDD, that post-diabetic or post-diet dip, something like that.
Yeah.
Where you eat a lot of food and then your body's like, hey, well, we can't do anything else but process this food right now.
Yeah, definitely. So things like that where like it's just kind of been embraced by your culture that this is what you get to do. You get to take your nap in the middle of the day and then you keep going.
Well, I'm thinking about cultures like that, like they tend to eat dinner at a much later time and they tend to go to bed at a much later time as well, because it's just built into the structure of their society, which is really nice. Whereas like in the US, I don't think that that's not something that would function here. Like maybe like in a community, but not overall. It's not set up like that. Yeah.
Yeah. If we get back into or touch just a little bit more on that divided sleep though. We can see it in infants and children. They tend to have a lot of divided sleep because they need so much more sleep to be able to function. Their bodies are growing and developing, so they might need 16 to 20 hours of sleep. Well, for them, they're not going to go down for 16 to 20 hours at a time. They're going to go down for a few hours, wake up, need to feed, get some movement in, things like that, take another nap. And we don't see the sleep issues. And I'm speaking this as someone without kids, but you don't see those big, like, oh, this child is so sleep deprived because they're only sleeping 3-4 hours at a time, but they're doing it consistently on their schedule, and it makes sense for their body.
Well, and I think it's really interesting with kids, like, that it's just kind of, it naturally occurs. Kids just want to have a nap in the afternoon when they've had a busy day and they're tired. And there's kind of a natural time that they tend to like get cranky in the evening and are ready for bed, even if they're not picking up on the signals and like the things in the house are keeping them active. Like you can see, I can definitely see with my kids that, okay, it's time for you to go to bed. Yeah. And then just naturally, my kids, like I plan for them to have a minimum of 10 hours, but 10 to 11 hours of sleep, and then adjusting for it, watching kind of like as my oldest, as he gets older, like watching that progression of needing less sleep. He doesn't quite need 10 or 11 hours all the time. He can function on less than that, but still being very like cognizant of is he then wanting to have naps in the afternoon and kind of letting that naturally occur. I think that as adults, we tend to build our life and then plan sleep like, it's fine if I'm only getting 6 or 7 hours of sleep, but because I want to do all of these things. And that, but really, we should be structurally building our life around getting that 7 to 9 hours of sleep and then building the rest of our day around that.
Yeah. Especially like if we're not allowing ourselves the actual time to sleep, and we make that a habit, it goes right back to what we were just talking about of these are the things that can occur if we're sleep deprived. And then it's going to affect our health and our well-being all throughout our lives. And then maybe even with our personal relationships with people as well, because if we're cranky all the time, people generally don't want to hang around people who are cranky all the time.
Yeah, definitely. I also think that like we tend to just go like, oh, I need 7 to 9 hours of sleep, or I need 8 hours of sleep. And we go to bed. We think that if we go and lay down at 10 o'clock and we're up at 6, that's our 8 hours. But we don't plan around when you're going to bed, you need that time beforehand. And so planning things into that, planning your nightly routine, planning your, like for you, planning for the next day, giving yourself time for that. And then in the morning, understanding like, I'm totally a person who, as soon as I'm awake and I'm ready to go and I'm fine. But like understanding your body mechanisms and how that functions for you. And maybe you need an hour or two to get ready in the morning to just like wake up and be a person before you go out and interact with other people, but planning that time into your sleep routine as well.
Yeah, that is extremely important. I remember many nights looking at my alarm and being like, okay, if I fall asleep right now, I will get X amount of sleep. And then 20 minutes later, still awake. If I fall asleep right now, but I know personally for me, I cannot fall asleep just instantaneously. My husband, complete opposite. Head hits the pillow, he's asleep. Me, I need to lay in bed essentially for 30 minutes and then I'm drifting off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I'm totally my head hits the pillow and I fall asleep sort of person.
I envy you all so much. There will be times when I'm like, I am tired here on the couch. I'm going to go up to bed. And I'm still laying on my bed for about 20 to 30 minutes trying to drift off into sleep.
That's rough. Oh.
But that kind of flows nicely into how our sleep affects the next day and everything that we kind of do going afterwards. Because like you were saying, if you are trying to believe that your 8 hours of sleep is from 10 to 6 a.m., but you need time to fall asleep, you need time to wake up, you're not going to get that full amount.
Yeah, definitely. Well, and the other part of it is, so we've talked about outside of the podcast, we've talked about how we track our sleep. And I wasn't aware that I had like restless periods throughout the night until I started tracking my sleep. And then it tells me like for 45 minutes here, you were not sleeping, for 20 minutes here. And I'm like, I don't have any, like, I wasn't cognizant of it. I wasn't aware of it at all, but I can feel it. Like I feel the difference in my body when I've had a really restless night of sleep versus a really restful night of sleep.
So I looked just now at my sleep from last night and it's got like 3 chunks. So I was clearly awoken somehow. I do not remember being awake, but I was awoken at least twice last night.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah, I
whatever that
had two
was.
as well. Yeah. And there's like cultural things. So like there's in like Chinese medicine, they talk about like specific hours of the night are when you're processing like repressed memories and traumas and that kind of stuff and processing different information throughout your body. And so it's which is really fascinating. I don't have enough information to speak on it, but yeah, but like coming to that understanding it's pretty cool to learn
Yeah.
different philosophies on sleep.
We talked earlier about how I'm going to start making a to-do list before bed, to try to like brain dump everything out so that now I can say, all right, I don't need to remember this anymore. I'm ready for bed. And you essentially are now reading your book before bed to kind of trigger that. Is there anything else that you do to kind of get yourself prepared for bed?
Yeah. So, I'm terrible about washing my face before I go to bed. I'm like, but that's something that I'm actively working on. Like, I'm really good at my morning routine of washing my face, but going to bed at night, like, I'm so tired by the time that I'm climbing into bed that I'm like, I don't want to do it. So that's something I'm building into my routine is like washing my face, doing that kind of thing. But also for me, it has to do, so going back to that physical environment, my physical environment impacts the way that I sleep. And so if I know that there are dishes in the kitchen or there's dishes left on the table from dinner or like my house is just generally untidy, then I don't sleep as well because I know that I have to get up the next morning and take care of that right away. So I built that into my nighttime routine. So as my kids are going and brushing their teeth, getting their jammies on, that kind of stuff, I spend time tidying up the living room, putting the load of dishes in the dishwasher and getting that started. Any laundry that I have, I'm starting that if I can before I go to bed so that it's ready to go. So, and it also gives me a sense of like accomplishment. Like, even if that's all I did for the entire day, kept my children alive, kept myself alive, and started a load of dishes, like, great, we did something productive. So,
Yeah.
well, yeah,
On the basic human level, you succeeded. Everyone is alive.
Everyone is alive, right? Even if they yelled and screamed at each other, they're still alive.
Exactly.
Yeah. How about you?
One thing that I do is I make myself a cup of tea. So I enjoy a lot of like chamomile teas or like the lavender, those type of relaxing teas at night to try to help myself signal this is the tea you're going to drink before you go to bed. So start getting yourself like calmed down, prepared like an hour before, like you get to have this tea and then we're going to move along upstairs in the dark and go to bed.
Yeah. I love that. I love the way that you phrase that, actually. I get to have this cup of tea before I go to bed. That's such a like positive way to view that routine as I get to wash my face before I go to bed. I get to have this tea. I get to clean up after my children. Like, it's nice.
I love that I get to clean up after my children one. I'm so
Yeah, I'm
happy to
like,
do that.
so happy. You know what? They made memories. It's good. It
That's
doesn't
what's
always feel like
important.
that, but yeah, for sure.
So trying to restructure that brain of so this is what you get to do before you go to bed. And then you're hopefully prepared for making that transition from awake to asleep better.
Mm-hmm.
But
Definitely.
if those are not your cup of tea, um, some other good things that you might want to try building into your bedtime routine if you don't have one or you need to adjust yours because it's not working as well as you'd like. One would be trying to go to bed and waking up around the same time every day so that your body gets used to like this is when you wake up in the morning. I know from my dad, and my mom too actually a lot, but my dad does not sleep with an alarm clock anymore, and he still wakes up at like 6:30 in the morning every day. He is
That's wild.
retired. He has no reason to be up this early, and yet he still wakes up so early.
Yeah.
And it's probably just those years and years of, okay, this was my routine. I go to bed at this time. I wake up at this time. This is how my body works.
hmm Yeah. Another great thing would be creating kind of a yoga routine before you go to bed. Um, I wish that I was better at this. I'm a yoga teacher out in the real world, and I don't do yoga before I go to bed, but it is really, really good for you. If it's some physical movement, some winding down, stretching, calming movement is something that you need as part of your routine, it is a great way to go.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite stretch that maybe people can start with if they don't have a flow, but maybe they want us to do one yoga pose or one stretch?
Yeah. I would say like a low lunge or a pigeon pose, anything that opens up your hips. We store so much trauma and so much of our energy and anxiety and that kind of stuff in our hips. And so really any pose that's going to get you deep stretching into those psoas muscles and into your glutes and hamstrings and into those portions of your legs, anything that opens up the hips is going to be really great for you right before bed. And then heart openers as well. Just allowing that positive energy. So opening up through the shoulders, stretching. Ooh, I stepped, crackle, popped right there. Yeah, anything that opens the heart and opens the chest. It's really good.
Awesome. A couple other really easy ones. Going to sleep in a dark, cool environment for sleeping. So that means you need blackout curtains or a white noise machine or something. That might be helpful to help you fall asleep and stay asleep. And then a big one that we talked about that we clearly aren't doing as well is just limiting that screen time before bed, turning off the phones, turning off the computer, the TV, 30 minutes to an hour before bed so that your brain has time to kind of shut off those blue light waves, have time to kind of stop signaling your brain to be awake and just helping you to trigger, all right, it's time for rest.
Yeah. One additional one would be a breathing exercise or meditation. Some people really like meditation. Other people can't quite shut their brain down. But just taking the time to even do a simple box breathing of inhaling 4 seconds, hold 4 seconds, exhale 4 seconds, hold 4 seconds. Just doing that rhythmic breathing for 10 to 20 breaths is really, really good. Helps you shut down a little bit. It gets you focused and recentered back into your body and takes you out of your mind and out of all the worries and concerns from the day.
Yeah, that is a good one to bring up because it gets you into kind of a rhythm and a relaxing rhythm, which your body needs to be in to be able to fall into that rest.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm well prepared for sleeping.
I know. And as we can see now that the podcast is coming to an end, it's dark here. I can start to get ready.
Right? I'm like, I can't. It's 9:30. Oh my gosh. I got 100 things to do.
Yeah. I've still got a few hours before I get my calming tea, but I've got my now cold. This was a chai tea, so I can finish this one and then get to make my other one.
Yeah. I was drinking chai too, but mine's decaffeinated because, my caffeine sensitivities.
Yeah. I didn't look on my box because I just bought it today to see if it was a good one, but I'll have to check if it's caffeinated or not because that might affect my sleep. That's another thing we didn't talk about, but it's an interesting one because people's caffeine sensitivity is different. So there are people who can drink a cup of coffee and then fall asleep. And to me, that is wild.
Yeah. There's some research that says if you drink something caffeinated right before you fall asleep, like drink it and then lay down and go to sleep, that it actually deepens the sleep that you get. And then when you wake up, you're more energized. But for myself, I'm super sensitive to caffeine. So like even decaffeinated tea, I've been having 2 cups throughout the day, which is between 1 and 8 micrograms or milligrams of caffeine. And that is too much for my body. My body literally now is having headaches. This is the second day that I've had a headache. Yeah, so I have to be super careful about any caffeine that I consume.
Yeah. I will say that the best naps that I ever get in my life are the ones where you feel really tired and you need a nap, chugging down a coffee, falling asleep, and then your body kind of naturally wakes up like that hour later and you are good to go.
Yeah. That's how I feel about pasta. I'm like, I love having a big bowl of pasta and then having a nap, Yeah. And then I wake up and I'm like, oh my God, I feel so good. But it's like carbo
we are
loading,
too
right?
different.
Yeah. It's like, eat some pasta before bed.
Yeah. I mean, I love
Only
pasta,
when I'm
but
pregnant.
yeah, I could never wake up an hour later after a pasta type nap. You're like, this is a 4-hour minimum nap.
Yeah, pasta nap. That's the thing. That's our catch for this one. Pasta nap. Thank you for joining us today at Race to Wellness. We hope it was both fun and informative for you. Make sure to join us for our next episode, and don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on any future content.
Also, we'd love to keep the conversation going, so feel free to ask us any questions or leave us a comment down below. You can also send us an email at racetowellness2023@gmail.com and click on the links in the description to follow us on our social media platforms.